I mean, I guess getting back to the whole idea of learning Chinese, I had to control myself for a second
Right.
there. I almost went and said like and subscribe to our page
Like
to our
getting
Patreon
back
for
to the
bonus
topic
clips.
of
Oh.
like-
Anyways,
Yeah.
it's a very very big tangent that had to get out of there, but yeah, I mean, for the whole idea of learning Chinese, though, I mean, there's the whole kind of idea that gets presented around the community that it gives you a potential advantage, right? If
Yeah.
you're learning Japanese compared to someone maybe from like a Western language learning Japanese, right? And I
Yeah.
mean, you really did get to experience this considering Chinese is your first language.
Right.
So I guess what would you say your experience was like, kind of just for you personally on this topic?
Yeah, like it's hard to say because it's not like I've
Uh-huh.
experienced both, right? But
Yeah.
just like from people I know who study Japanese, I feel like there is
Right.
like a difference, but it's not like such a huge difference that it's presented in the community. Like in the community, it's like it's as if it's like, oh, it's just like super easy. It's like it'll take like 2 months and then you're like native level. Yeah.
You got the kanji down. You like blink a couple times, go to sleep, read read Genki, and then
It's like,
you're
open
just-
eyes, I know Japanese.
I know Japanese. Yeah. I mean, that was probably your cousin, right? Like literally, like just go elongate that out to a year. But
Because I've definitely
Uh.
met like Taiwanese people who study Japanese and have been
Yeah.
studying for a while, but they
Right.
sound really bad
uh
and they make like really basic mistakes.
right.
Yeah, like so sometimes I mean before the lockdown and everything, like I would go to like these
Yeah.
like language exchange here in Taiwan, and I went to this one where like the host like she went to college in Japan for like 4 years, and I think like she worked there and is a translator.
Right.
And she hosts these events, so she talks to Japanese people all the time.
Right.
But then she'd make like so many mistakes that would like throw me off, like in Japanese. Like there's like one mistake that Chinese speakers always make, which is like you know how if you have like a verb and a noun, you just attach
Yeah.
it like shiranai hito.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then like in Chinese, the way you attach a verb or like an adjective to a noun is you need to add
Right.
like a no. It's like literally the same word
Oh. Uh huh.
no. That's how it is in Chinese. But when people, when they learn Japanese, they always say like "shiranai no hito,"
Right.
and then yeah, it would just like throw me off. And then I remember like sometimes like we'd be having conversations with Japanese people, and then because like what she said would be in the back of my mind, I would also make like the same mistake.
oh.
And then I was just like, oh, I should stop coming to these events.
You actually went there and lowered your own level.
Yeah.
You started out a little bit higher, and then you're like, okay. Before I just forget
Yeah.
Japanese, before I become
Yeah,
this, I'm gonna leave.
yeah. But
Uh-huh.
there are some like advantages, which is like, I mean, I never had to do like RTK, right? I think a lot of people like hate Anki because of RTK.
Oh, RTK. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And I mean, like a lot of kanji just has like an inherent meaning to me. Like even if I've
Uh-huh.
never seen this kanji before, I can kind of like guess like it's a positive kanji or a negative kanji,
Right.
like a connotation.
Uh-huh.
So I guess it's easier to acquire words. And there's like words like the word tensai, like genius.
Yeah.
Like in Chinese, it's tiancai. So it's like almost exactly the
Oh,
same pronunciation. There's like a lot of words like that. But then there's also words like neko, like cat. And then
Yeah.
it's like it's the same kanji, but in Chinese it's like mao, which is like completely different. And I remember in the beginning, like when I was going through Genki, it would throw me off. Because I have to look at this word and be like, okay, don't think of that Chinese pronunciation. Think of the Japanese pronunciation.
So in a way, it kind of threw you for a loop, and sometimes
Yeah.
like it was like a different type of mental hurdle, right?
Yeah. And I know a lot of people, like Chinese speakers who even though they can read Japanese books, they
Right.
never like actually read it in like if they see a word,
Japanese.
they don't read it in the Japanese way. They see it, okay,
Uh.
that's the Chinese word that means like farming. Okay, next. So it's like Japanese, oh, farming word. Okay. And then just, yeah. Because you can definitely read it like that. Right.
Right. Mhm.
Yeah. And there's like kanji that's like super similar, like between Chinese and Japanese, but then it's like not the same. It just like looks almost exactly the same. Yeah. So like for example, this is like the Chinese version,
Right.
and then this is the Japanese version.
Oh, I see. It's like it's very similar, but then like there's one like very slight difference. I see. And you're like, I can just imagine you looking this, like, especially when you're starting out, and you're like, wait, don't know. Well,
yeah, it's just like slightly off, you know.
Right. It's like, you know, when you're like reading stuff really fast, like let's just say in English, right? Like, it's like when it's just normal to you, right? You just going, like kind of like along the same lines. You're just kind of, if you're trying to go kind of speed through, like, let's just say Genki, for example, and you see that, you're like, oh yeah, it's just that. And then you just like, you come back to it and you're like, wait a minute. No, it's not. Like, I just got trolled. Trolled. It's kind of like little booby traps like Japanese people were kind of put in for Chinese learners. They're like, oh, we can't make this too easy, can we?
Like, it would happen when I'm like, so I'd see like a Japanese word and I don't know the reading. Like, for example, let's say I see this word and I don't know the Japanese reading. Right. And I would go and look it up, but I would just type it in Chinese. And then it wouldn't show up in the dictionary. So like, what the hell? And so I had to look very closely and be like, oh, it's actually different. And then I have to write it.
Bring out the microscope.
Yeah. So, and sometimes it's almost exactly the same. But then they just have a different like Unicode character because it's like in the Japanese like category.
Right.
Yeah.